Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. I am so excited because my workbook is officially out now. I built this workbook with a lot of great frameworks and examples and case studies and ways for you to start to think about your career, where you've been and where you're going, how to think about your personal brand and your value and confidence, and to start to dive into some of the challenges that you might have with visibility so that you can start to overcome those and be able to take action and move forward. I wanted it to be like a little bit lighthearted in places. I wanted it to be something that people could use as a guide and refer back to. I really hope you take the opportunity to check it out, and you can find it anywhere online, and there are links on my website page at yourjourneytovisibility.com. So today's episode is something that hits kind of close to home for me and my experience, but also many others that I work with. So when I start to work with someone, one of the things I'm trying to learn is where are they at in their mindset? What is happening for them? What are they struggling with? And for many people, it's about whether they should stay at their role or leave. I struggled with that as well. And it isn't an easy decision to make. And sometimes it requires a lot of thought, maybe longer than you might think, because it is such a big shift, depending on what it is you want next, depending on how risk averse or risk forward you are. What I found is that people leave when they are feeling like the pain is too great to stay. They will make the choice to leave. And for me, I definitely was in that place. Things were not ideal. And I think having the whole merger thing happen right around the time was in many ways a blessing for me. I think there are reasons things happen and we have to make tough decisions in our life. And for me, I was really blessed to be able to make that decision when I did and to move forward in a way that I never thought I would in this business. And so when I talk to people who have left, I want to go from that lens for you for just a moment. So when I talk with people after they have left their role that they were struggling in and they find a new role or they move to a new company or they start their own business, one of the most interesting things that they usually share with me is I stayed at my company too long. And although I need to start over, it's kind of exciting. And I think for everyone, right, there's this moment of something new, something you haven't tried before, something that's going to challenge you. And I was speaking with someone the other day who's recently done that for herself. And what was interesting is she made a comment about something that I've often thought about for myself. And that is when you're in the company that you've been in for a long time, they start to see you differently. You're just part of, I call it being part of the furniture, but it's being part of the world that everyone knows. And so they don't see anything new from you necessarily, even though you're doing great work. It's not about that. But there's something about bringing someone else in from another company and whether or not that person is actually going to make a difference, there is the perception that they're going to make a difference. Some people I know left our company, went to work for another company just for 1 year and came back and they were like the new shiny penny. And I understand that they had different experiences and different things that they had to work through, but I don't know that they learned everything that they could possibly learn leaving for only a year. So I think it's something to be mindful of, that it happens a lot where there is just a perception that you are not going to do anything different. You're not going to change. You're not going to speak up. It isn't necessarily true, of course, but that is the perception. And I think for many people, myself included, the workplace has changed a lot. Companies used to be more loyal than they are today. When I went to work at Kraft, it was intended that I would stay there until I retired. And companies wanted that. They didn't want to have to go out and find more people. So they would do whatever they could to inspire loyalty for people to stay. And it worked for a long time. But technology entered the picture and changed everything. There's no need for you to stay at a company for a long period of time because you may not want to stay, first of all, but you may not have the right skills to stay with the company who is changing and evolving, and you need to be prepared for that. So it was probably like 20-ish years ago when I think things really started to change. Technology became a much bigger thing. Companies started to think about themselves. Employees then had to think about themselves and think about what's important for them. And that meant that an employee might have to make a decision to leave. And it also meant that a company might make a decision to change the way that work is done or to focus on other areas. Now, for example, in IT, there was a lot of people who came from a coding background or database background, and they had done that for so many years. But at some point, we outsourced a lot of those jobs. And when that happened, it meant that the skills that the people had who were in those very technical roles, those roles were no longer needed in the same way. Now, that didn't mean that they couldn't do something else, like move into project management or potentially into leadership roles. But if they're not interested in that, if they wanted to stay technical, there really wasn't a role for them anymore. So I think the technology revolution, if you want to call it that, really had an impact on companies, and it also had an impact on the employees and their skill sets. So if you think about your own career, where you've been, how long you've been there, I think it's really natural for you to want to stay. It might be comfortable. You're getting a good paycheck. You might be getting some great perks. But if you find that you are wanting to do something more, you're asking for more, you're being very clear on what it is you want, and you interview but don't get the role, or if you're not allowed to interview, or if people are trying to redirect you into something else that's not interesting for you, I think you have to think about whether or not it's right for you to stay. And I had a client who recently went through this, and it was a hard decision. It was not easy. It took 2 years to make, but it comes down to the value of how you see yourself. And if you see yourself in a way that means that you want to do more and that you can do more, you might have to leave in order to get that. So in September of 2024, the Human Workplace Index found that nearly 30% of workers have felt invisible at work, and 27% have felt flat out ignored. I thought that was unbelievable. First of all, that's a third of the workplace that is feeling like they aren't seen, they aren't visible, that no one is worried about them and their careers, not developing them. And if you think about this, one of the other points in the article was feeling seen and visible is a crucial part of employee productivity and engagement. What we know to be true is that engaged employees lead to better business outcomes. So I want you to think about situations you might have been in. Have you been able to demonstrate your value, first of all? Are you clear where you want to go? And if you feel like no one's hearing that, no one's listening to you, no one's interested in helping you move any of that forward, you might have to make the tough call. And of course, I'm saying that with all the understanding that there are big pieces to this, like your compensation and whether you might have to move or whether you might move from a remote job into one that's in the office every day. All of those things are absolutely true, and you have to take those into consideration for your specific situation. But if you feel like you're not being valued anymore at your company, you have to ask yourself whether or not it's worth it for you to stay. So I think when employees feel like they're not being valued, they tend to either fade into the background and get frustrated. They avoid opportunities. They stop speaking up. They may even self-sabotage to avoid the limelight. They stop believing in themselves, which is really hard. When I have so many people come to me and they just do not believe in themselves anymore, it's really challenging to see that happen. And my goal is to help them believe in themselves again, to recognize that they do bring a lot of value and that they may have lost trust in their management, or their management may not see that value right now, but maybe there's a way that we can turn it around. Maybe there's a way that we can start to have their management see them in a way that they haven't seen them before. This is about how to shift what you're doing and show a new side of you. And if none of those things work, if you cannot get through to anyone, then again, you might have to make the tough call. So if you're in that situation and you want to start showing a new side of yourself, I'm going to use a term that I've been using lately that I hope resonates for you. I tell people now to think about how to reverse engineer what it is they want. So if I want to get a role as a VP, for example, and I'm a director, what do I need to do to help them see me as a VP? And how can I start doing those things in my current role today? So I know what the VPs around me do. I know what is getting rewarded by other people in leadership. I know what their competencies are. I can probably look those up. I can maybe even see a job description if one becomes available and what that job is expected to do. And so now I can look at that and say, what are some things that I can do in my role today to demonstrate that I am ready for a VP role? So this is about networking with other people, starting to understand what their roles entail, what a day in the life looks like. What are some things that they've struggled with? What was new to them? What were they surprised at? Ask a bunch of questions. But I also want you to spend time building your brand externally. So you never know when you might need that network to be there for you if you choose to leave. But it's also a great opportunity for you to check in and see how you're viewed by others. When people who don't know you meet you, they're going to share things with you that you won't hear in your company, because your company has just accepted that that's who you are, and they don't see it as, I'll call it, special anymore. But when someone else meets you and you have something that they don't have or something that their company needs, they're going to see you as a rock star. And that is actually what has been said about a lot of former craft people in this situation who went to other companies, and the companies that they went to were blown away and called them rock stars. And that is just because we went through a lot of leadership training and we learned a lot of things. And we are able to now go into companies and show really quickly that we are valuable. And I've seen that time and again. And I want you to start to think about the things that you can do, the value that you're providing. And that comes with understanding more about yourself and what you have to offer. And that personal brand section of the new workbook is including some of that, along with value and confidence, spending time on those things to help you get clarity for yourself and understand the value that you provide. And then what we want to do is just change how you talk about yourself. We're going to change the words that you use to not only talk about what you're doing, but showing the value and impact that you're making. So we want to show that you're already acting like a VP now and not wait until you get the role. We used to say you have to do the role before you get the role. And so that is true here as well. So what are some things that you need to show in your director role today, in my example, that a VP would be doing so that they can connect the dots and start to see that you're ready for that? And the last one is thinking about opportunities that you have to get visibility, to show this new side of you. How are you leveraging the meetings that you're in, the opportunities that you have to be in front of your leadership? Are you taking the time to meet with other people in the organization, sharing your story, sharing the narrative that you have about yourself so that they can see and hear you, and take the opportunity to talk about what it is you want, because they might be able to help you. So let's take advantage of those moments and share what it is you want next. And if they have feedback for you about something that you need to build on or you need to do more of, let them share that with you. That's information that you can then use to shore up your skills, or to go take a class, or to learn something that you need to learn, or have an opportunity to talk about something you've already done that maybe they didn't know about. This is all about you creating the narrative for yourself and being able to talk about it. So in my client's situation that I was talking about earlier, when she was trying to decide whether to leave, she did end up leaving. She got not only one offer, but she got two offers, amazing roles, amazing offers. And when I work with people, I've generally seen that a lot, where we get two offers and then we get to have them think about each of those offers and what makes the most sense for them. When you try something new like that, it's going to increase your confidence and you're going to get noticed, and it's going to feel a bit strange because you haven't been noticed, even though you may have been doing these exact same things in your company, and they don't see it as something special. They don't see it as unique, but you can actually start showing that to other people, and they could be really excited that you come to work with them and that you can share a lot of those strengths and skills with another company to help them grow and develop too. So spend a little time thinking about this, where you are, what you're doing, how you're feeling about your role. Are you feeling valued? And if you're not, are you doing something to make sure that you're showing your value? If you are doing that and you're talking about the things you want and you're showing your value and how you're making an impact, and it's being ignored or not being seen in the way that you would like it to, you might have to decide whether or not it's time for you to go to something else where you can be valued and you can grow and show other people what you can do, and most of all, show yourself. Thanks so much for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.